Greetings, lore masters. Tonight our chronicle covers the sharp sting of betrayal, not from ancient liches or world-eating dragons, but from those sworn to carry our burdens. Imagine standing in the golden glow of the rift, the air thick with falling leaves and the scent of honey brew, only to feel cold steel press against your back. Not from a bandit, but from the friend who was just guarding your flank. It is a peculiar tragedy of the dragon-souled hero. You can slay a god, but you cannot force a moral compass upon a companion who despises the dark. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Cold Harbour without some serious enchanted gear, and you certainly won't survive the judgment of a righteous follower if you decide to practice your pickpocketing skills in their presence. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments. I love imagining where we all are in this vast world, connected by the campfire of lore. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Dragonborn walks a lonely road, even when surrounded by a retinue of housecarls and mercenaries. We often view the followers of Skyrim as simple tools, walking inventories meant to hold extra dragon bones and soak up damage from Draugr deathlords. We assume their loyalty is absolute, purchased with a favour or a bag of gold. But hidden deep within the game's code, buried beneath the texture files and the pathfinding meshes, lies a system of justice that does not sleep. It is the morality statistic, a hidden variable that determines not just who will fight for you, but who will turn on you the moment you cross a line. And there is perhaps no better exemplar of this rigid, unyielding code than Mjoll the Lioness, the protector of Riften, and the first fracture point in our study of betrayal. To understand why Mjoll will inevitably turn her blade against a criminal dragonborn, we must first look at the environment that forged her. Riften is a city drowning in the golden light of eternal autumn, but beneath the falling leaves lies a rot that goes down to the bedrock. The canals are choked with mist and the desperate whispers of the addicted. The marketplace is strangled by the influence of the Blackbriar family, and the Thieves' Guild operates with near impunity, treating the city guard like paid employees rather than law enforcement. Into this cesspool steps Mjoll, a warrior who has travelled the breadth of Tamriel, from the ash wastes of Morrowind to the stone halls of the West. She is an anomaly in the Rift, a creature of pure, almost stubborn altruism in a city that rewards only selfishness. When the Dragonborn first encounters Mjoll, she is usually patrolling the market, loudly proclaiming her disdain for the Thieves' Guild. She is a towering figure, clad in heavy armour, her voice cutting through the ambient chatter of the beggar and the merchant alike. She tells a story of losing her blade, Grim Siva, a glass greatsword of immense power, within the Dwemer ruin of Mzinchileft. Here is our first core in-game fact. Mjoll is one of the few followers who requires a specific dungeon delve not for wealth, but for the restoration of her identity. Grimsever isn't just a weapon to her, it represents her ability to project force, to actually make a difference against the corruption she despises. When the Dragonborn retrieves it, battling through the steam-powered horrors of the Dwarven Centurions and the Farmer Hives, they are not just returning an item, they are restoring the Lioness's teeth. In gratitude, she pledges her sword to the Dragonborn. "I will fight at your side," she says, and for a time she means it. The player, likely feeling invincible with an essential NPC watching their back, someone who literally cannot die, sets out to conquer the province. But this is where the mechanics of the game clash violently with the player's agency. Mjoll is scripted with a morality rating of 3. In the creation kit, the tool used by the developers to build the world, morality is a scale from 0 to 3. A rating of 0 belongs to the psychopaths and the Dark Brotherhood initiates. They will commit any crime, kill any innocent, and never bat an eye. A rating of 3, however, is labelled no crime. This doesn't just mean Mjoll won't commit crimes herself, it means she has a distinct intolerance for them. The game dictates that if a follower with high morality witnesses the player committing a crime against a faction they are friendly with, or often simply against society at large, their disposition drops instantly. They shift from the ally faction to the enemy faction in the space of a single server tick. Imagine the scene. The Dragonborn and Mjoll have just cleared a bandit camp. They return to Whiterun to sell their loot. The Dragonborn, perhaps feeling a bit mischievous, or simply misclicking, snatches a sweet roll from a stall, or accidentally strikes a guard while trying to shout at the sky. A normal follower, a mercenary like Janassa, might shrug this off, but Mjoll? The code executes immediately. Her dialogue, usually filled with tales of her father or her travels, ceases. The combat AI takes over. She draws Grimsever, the very blade you return to her, and swings it not at the guards but at you. This betrayal is jarring because it feels personal. You saved her life, you retrieved her sword, you listened to her endless monologues about how much she hates the Thieves' Guild, and yet, the moment you display the traits of the people she hates, she does not hesitate. There is no persuasion check, no wait, let me explain. There is only the swift, brutal application of justice. It's a harsh reminder that to Mjoll, the Dragonborn is not a master, but a colleague, and colleagues can be fired, or in this case, decapitated. There is a fascinating layer of obscurity here regarding the technical crime tolerance limit. While many players know Mjoll is good, few realise that her aggression is tied to a specific interplay between her morality stat and her aggression stat. Mjoll possesses an aggression level of aggressive, level 1 in some data, effectively higher in behaviour, which means she will attack enemies on sight. When you commit a crime, the game flags you as a criminal. To Mjoll's AI, a criminal is an enemy tag, no different from bandit or necromancer. The tragedy is mathematical. Her love for you is high, but her hatred for the criminal tag is hard-coded to override it. She's a prisoner of her own integrity. This rigid adherence to the law has sparked intense debate within the community. For years, fans have argued about the nature of Mjoll's relationship with Erin, the Imperial man who follows her around like a lost puppy. A popular fan theory suggests that Mjoll's morality is actually somewhat performative, or perhaps that she is brainwashed by Erin. The theory posits that Erin, who saved her life outside the ruin of Mzinchaleft, essentially groomed her into this protector role to satisfy his own hero complex. He can't fight, so he directs her wrath. When the Dragonborn takes Mjoll away, Erin often follows, appearing in the player's home, watching. Some lore delvers believe that Mjoll's instant betrayal of the player is a result of this psychological conditioning. She cannot deviate from the path of the hero because her identity is too fragile to withstand the cognitive dissonance of aiding a criminal. Consider the irony. If you join the Thieves' Guild, Mjoll will still speak to you. She will complain about the guild, unaware that her new best friend is its rising star. She will follow you into the Ratway, stepping over the bodies of low-level thugs, completely oblivious to your affiliation, until you actively commit a crime in her line of sight. It is a willful blindness, a selective perception that only shatters when the crime is undeniable. She is the embodiment of the saying ignorance is bliss, right up until the moment she puts an axe in your skull. This betrayal hits hardest because Mjoll is often the first follower a player truly invests in. She has a distinct personality, a unique voice actress, and a backstory that spans the continent. Unlike the housecarls who are sworn to you by feudal right, Mjoll chooses you, and because she chooses you based on your deeds, specifically the retrieval of Grimsever, her revocation of that choice feels like a moral judgment on the player's soul. When Lydia attacks you, it feels like a glitch or a conflict of duty. When Mjoll attacks you, it feels like you failed a test you didn't know you were taking. The combat itself is terrifying. Mjoll is a tank. She wears heavy armour and wields a two-handed weapon. She doesn't dance around. With magic or plink away with arrows, she charges. In those frantic moments inside a shop or a city street, as the guards are shouting and the bounty is racking up, having the Lioness turn on you adds a chaotic element of high damage pressure. You're suddenly fighting the person who is carrying all your healing potions. You're fighting the person holding your spare armour. The betrayal is logistical as well as emotional. As the dust settles and you're forced to either load a save or strike down the Lioness, you're left with the cold realization that in Skyrim, your reputation is not just what the guards say about you. It is a tangible force that dictates who will walk beside you and who will try to end you. Mjoll represents the absolute ceiling of this system, the uncompromising good that cannot exist in the grey morality of a Dragonborn who hoards cheese wheels and murders emperors. She is the gold standard of betrayal because she betrays you not for profit, not for power, but because you disappointed her. And in the quiet, snowy dark of the north, that disappointment cuts deeper than any blade. But Mjoll is not the only one who looks to the divine for guidance on when to strike you down. There are others whose devotion to the gods supersedes their loyalty, to a dragon-souled mortal. Just as Mjoll is driven by a civic sense of justice, our next subject is driven by a spiritual desperate need for atonement, a need so great that he cannot tolerate the spilling of fresh blood, lest it remind him of the red stains he can never wash from his own hands. We leave the golden forests of the Rift and ascend into the biting winds of the Pale, where the frost clings to the stone and the nightmares of the populace are all too real. Here, in the shivering town of Dawnstar, we find a figure wrapped in the robes of a priest, standing vigil against a terror that sleeps behind a heavy iron door. This is Erandur, a Dunmer priest of Mara, and he represents a betrayal born not of rigid law, but of a desperate, clawing need for redemption. If Mjoll's betrayal is a gavel striking a judge's desk, Erandur's betrayal is a rosary snapping in a trembling hand. Erandur's story is one of the most compelling narratives in the early game. When you meet him in the Windpeak Inn, the people of Dawnstar are suffering from a collective insomnia, plagued by horrific nightmares that drain their will and sanity. Erandur reveals that these dreams are emanating from the nearby Nightcaller Temple, a ruin dedicated to Vaermina, the Daedric prince of dreams and nightmares. He asks for your help to breach the temple and end the curse. It seems like a standard quest of heroism. Priest and hero band together to fight the darkness. But as you delve deeper into the frozen halls of Nightcaller Temple, fighting through orcs and mages who have been asleep for decades, the truth begins to unravel. Erandur knows this place too well. He knows the secret passages, the alchemical labs, the library. Finally he confesses, he was not always a priest of Mara. He was once a devotee of Vaermina. He was one of the cultists who unleashed the miasma, a gas that put the entire temple to sleep to prevent an invading orc war party from sacking it. He fled like a coward, leaving his brothers and sisters to rot in slumber, and spent decades running from his guilt until he found the mercy of the Mother Goddess, Mara. Here is the core in-game fact that defines his utility. Erandur is one of the few followers who is a pure spellsword, favouring fire magic and maces, a reflection of his dual nature as a former cultist and a current healer. If you spare him at the end of the quest, choosing not to kill him for the Skull of Corruption, he becomes a follower. He is eager, almost desperate to prove that his redemption is real. His dialogue is filled with gratitude and gentle proselytizing about Mara's love. Mara's benevolence is without limit, he will say, his voice soft and raspy. However, beneath this newfound piety lies a morality rating that is just as brittle as Mjoll's. Erandur is flagged with a morality of violence against enemies. This is slightly more lenient than Mjoll's no crime, but in practice, it creates a specific trigger for betrayal: murder. Erandur can tolerate petty theft. He might look the other way if you steal a loaf of bread, perhaps viewing it as a necessity of survival. But cold-blooded murder is anathema to him. If the Dragonborn kills a non-hostile NPC, a villager, a merchant, a non-aggressive animal, Erandur's trauma resurfaces. To Erandur, murder isn't just a crime, it is a slide back into the darkness he barely escaped. He spent years serving a Daedric prince who feasted on terror and psychological torture. Every innocent life taken in his presence is a reminder of the sacrifices he once performed or facilitated in the name of Vaermina. When you kill an innocent, you're not just breaking the law, you're acting like the cultist he used to be. You're becoming the mirror image of his past self, and he cannot abide that reflection. The betrayal is swift. The firebolt comes first, sizzling through the air, followed by the heavy swing of his mace. His combat barks, usually reserved for Draugr and bandits, are now directed at you. "May Mara have mercy on your soul," he cries, as he tries to burn you alive. It is a heartbreaking turn. You're fighting a man who just wants to be good, who is fighting you because he is terrified of being bad again. He attacks you to prove to himself and to Mara that he is no longer a monster. An obscure lore. Tidbit adds a tragic layer to this dynamic. In the game files and lore books found within the temple, specifically the Dreamstride, it is detailed how Vaermina's influence works. It doesn't just cause bad dreams, it erodes the moral fibre, making the victim paranoid and prone to violence. There is a lingering question of whether Erandur is truly free of Vaermina's grasp. Is his extreme reaction to your crime a sign of his devotion to Mara, or is it a sign that his mind is still fragile, still easily tipped into violence by the proximity of evil acts? The Skull of Corruption he urges you to destroy is a powerful artifact that feeds on dreams. By destroying it, he severs the link, but the neural pathways of a cultist remain. This leads to a dark fan theory that circulates in the lore community. Some players argue that Erandur's conversion to Mara is a form of PTSD coping mechanism, a manic defense. He clings to the benevolent goddess not out of genuine enlightened faith, but out of sheer terror of the alternative. Therefore, when he turns on the Dragonborn, it's a panic response. He isn't arresting you, he is purging a contaminant. He is trying to kill the Vaermina he sees in your actions. The betrayal is an act of spiritual hygiene. The mechanics of his betrayal are particularly dangerous because of his magic. Unlike Mjoll, who must close the distance, Erandur can blast you from across the room. If you accidentally kill a chicken in Riverwood or a guard in Markarth, you might find yourself engulfed in flames before you even realise your follower has turned. He is a glass cannon of righteousness. His destruction magic, while not the strongest in the game, is relentless, and his ability to heal himself means he has staying power in a prolonged skirmish. Furthermore, Erandur has a unique connection to the Waking Nightmare questline. If you betray him at the end of the quest, to take the Skull of Corruption, Vaermina speaks to you, congratulating you on your treachery. But if you save him, and then he betrays you later due to a crime, the narrative loop closes in a bizarre way. You spared a man so he could eventually judge you. The mercy you showed him becomes the weapon he uses against you. It is a distinct narrative punishment for the player who thinks they can perform one good deed, saving Erandur, to offset a lifetime of evil, murdering civilians. Erandur is the living proof that redemption is not a transaction. It is a continuous state of being, and if you drop the ball, he'll be there to catch it and throw it back as a fireball. As you stand over his body, or as you flee from his wrath, the wind of the Pale seems to howl a little louder. You realise that loyalty built on the shaky foundation of a convert's zeal is a volatile substance. He loved you for saving him, but he loved his salvation more. And in the calculus of the divines, the Dragonborn is just one soul, while the grace of Mara is infinite. But not all betrayals are born of high-minded religious trauma or civic duty. Some are born of much smaller, pettier jealousies in much smaller towns. We leave the snow-swept north and descend into the lush green valley of Riverwood, where a simple wood elf archer proves that even the most mundane jealousy can sharpen an arrow tip aimed at your heart. The air warms as we descend from the snowy peaks, the scent of pine sap and river water replacing the biting frost. We arrive in Riverwood, that idyllic hamlet nestled at the foot of the throat of the world. It's the first town many of us stumble into, chickens clucking, the mill wheel turning lazily in the current. It feels safe, it feels like home. And leaning against the railing of the trading post, or chopping wood with a rhythmic thwack, is Faendal. He's a Bosmer, a wood elf, and for many players, he is the very first follower they recruit. He seems simple enough, a local hunter with a grudge against a bard and a crush on the shopkeeper's sister, but do not mistake his rural simplicity for endless patience. Faendal's loyalty is as taut as his bowstring, and it snaps just as quickly. Faendal represents the working man's morality. He isn't a paladin like Mjoll or a priest like Erandur. He doesn't care about the metaphysical implications of your soul or the corruption of the city guard. He cares about honesty in its most basic transactional form. His morality rating is set to no crime, a surprising trait for a character who is willing to forge a fake letter to sabotage his romantic rival Sven. This hypocrisy is the key to his character. He is willing to bend the rules for love, but he will not tolerate a partner who breaks the social contract of property and personhood. The core in-game fact that makes Faendal so popular is his utility as an archery trainer. You can pay him to train you, then ask to trade items and take your gold back. It's a classic exploit, affectionately known as the Faendal Bank. Players view him as a resource, a walking quiver and a free wallet. But the game's AI does not recognise exploitable NPC, it recognises lawful citizen. If you are travelling with Faendal and you decide to pick the lock of a chest in a bandit camp, that's fine. But if you pick the lock of a chest in Alva the blacksmith's house while Faendal is watching, the mood shifts instantly. Faendal is a Bosmer who lives among Nords. He works at the lumber mill, a job that's culturally somewhat at odds with the Green Pact of Valenwood, which forbids harming vegetation. Though, as a civilised Bosmer, he likely doesn't adhere strictly to the Green Pact. Still, he's an outsider trying to fit in. He values his standing in Riverwood. When the Dragonborn commits a crime, stealing a horse, assaulting a guard, or even accidentally hitting a villager during a dragon attack. Faendal perceives this as a threat to his own integration. He is guilty by association. He cannot afford to be seen with a criminal. The betrayal is often shockingly immediate. One moment, he is covering your flank with accurate bowfire. The next, the red dot appears on your compass. "What do you think you're doing?" he shouts, his voice rising in that distinct, slightly pinched Bosmer tone. He draws his bow, and because he is often equipped with the best gear you gave him, perhaps a glass bow or even Daedric, he becomes a lethal sniper. Faendal doesn't charge you like Mjoll, he kites you. He backs away, firing arrows that stagger you, using the very terrain of Skyrim against you. He hunts you like he hunts elk. An obscure lore tidbit sheds light on his potential aggression. In the game data, Faendal belongs to the rival faction against Sven. This rivalry is coded deep. If Sven dies, Faendal will sometimes express satisfaction. This hints at a darker undercurrent in his personality, a capacity for malice that is usually suppressed by social norms. When you break the law, you remove the social norms that keep Faendal in check. You give him permission to unleash that suppressed aggression on you. You become another Sven, an obstacle, a problem, someone who doesn't respect the rules of the game. There is a prevalent community debate regarding who is the better person between Faendal and Sven. Many choose Faendal because he offers archery training, while Sven is just a bard. However, lore discussions often point out that Faendal's willingness to escalate the conflict with a fake letter, specifically one that accuses Sven of elitism or hatred, is a nasty piece of work. When he turns on the Dragonborn for stealing, it reeks of projection. He's a man who manipulates the truth to get the girl, but executes you for stealing an apple. It's the HOA president syndrome. He enforces rules he barely follows himself because enforcing them gives him power. The combat dynamic with Faendal is uniquely frustrating because of his range. If you are a melee character, chasing a betraying Faendal through the woods is a nightmare. He knows the kiting AI routine well. He'll backpedal, shoot, turn, run, and shoot again. If you're in a dungeon, he will use corners. And because he is a citizen class, if he attacks you in a town, the guards will often side with him immediately. You aren't just fighting an elf. You are fighting the entire town of Riverwood, triggered by Faendal's initial hostility. Imagine the scene. You're in the Riverwood Trader. You see the golden claw on the counter. You grab it, forgetting you haven't returned it to Lucan yet, or perhaps stealing it back. Faendal, standing right next to you, doesn't say, "Hey, put that back." He draws his hunting bow and puts an iron arrow in your knee. The shopkeeper joins in. The guards rush in. It's a cascade of chaos started by your friend. This betrayal serves as a harsh tutorial for new players. It teaches you that follower does not mean minion. It teaches you that the NPCs have an allegiance to the world that supersedes their allegiance to you. Faendal is a part of Riverwood's ecosystem. You are a visitor. If you threaten the ecosystem, the white blood cells, Faendal included, will attack the infection. As you stand over the body of the elf who taught you how to hold a bow, likely looting the gold you paid, him for training back off his corpse, the lesson is clear. The quiet life of a lumberjack breeds a specific kind of conservative protectiveness. He wanted a quiet life with Camilla Valerius. You brought chaos. And in the simple calculus of a Riverwood hunter, chaos must be put down, preferably with a clean shot between the eyes. But if Faendal represents the honest labourer's rejection of crime, his rival represents something far more insidious, the tattletale. Across the street, strumming a lute and composing bad poetry, is a man whose betrayal is not about hunting you down, but about running to Mommy and the guards. Across the muddy street from Faendal's mill, usually lounging inside the Sleeping Giant Inn, sits Sven. If Faendal is the worker, Sven is the artist. Or at least he thinks he is. He's the local bard, a Nord who spends his days strumming a lute and complaining about his romantic woes to his doting elderly mother, Hilda. Choosing Sven as a follower is often done for the novelty. He's not a warrior, he has no special skills to teach, and his combat stats are abysmal. But if you do take him on the road, perhaps pitying his small-town boredom, you quickly learn that his loyalty is as flimsy as his poetry. Sven represents the civilian witness archetype of betrayal, the man who won't just fight you, but will actively tattle on you with a self-righteous zeal that is infuriatingly realistic. Sven's morality is also set to no crime, but his reaction feels different from Mjoll's crusade or Vandal's defense of order. Sven's betrayal feels like panic mixed with opportunism. He is a citizen-class NPC, not a warrior. When you commit a crime, say, pickpocketing a patron in the inn or assaulting a traveller on the road, Sven's primary AI directive often isn't to engage in glorious combat immediately, but to alert the authorities. He is the guy who yells, "Guards! Guards!" while cowering behind a table. The core in-game fact regarding Sven is his surprisingly low-level cap. Without mods or unofficial patches, Sven is one of the weakest followers in the game, capping out very early, often level 20. This makes his betrayal almost comical but dangerous in its consequences. He won't kill you himself. He can't, he's too weak. But he will ensure you possess a bounty. He acts as a mobile alarm system. If you try to stealth kill a bandit in a city, perhaps for a Dark Brotherhood contract, and Sven sees it, he instantly becomes a witness. The bounty-added notification that pops up is often directly triggered by his line of sight. He is the snitch in your squad. Why does he do it? Sven is a creature of social standing. He is a bard, a profession that relies entirely on the goodwill of the audience. In Nordic culture, bards are historians and news criers. They are the voice of the community. If Sven were to aid a criminal, he would lose his social capital. He would no longer be the beloved or tolerated son of Riverwood. He would be an outlaw. His mother, Hilda, is also a notorious gossip who starts the game by shouting about a dragon. It runs in the family. They are alarmists. Sven betrays you because he is terrified of being on the wrong side of public opinion. An obscure lore tidbit found in the Songs of Skyrim and developer notes suggests that bards in Skyrim are actually trained to be observant. The Bard's College in Solitude isn't just about music, it's about history, politics, and observation. While Sven hasn't attended the college yet, he dreams of it. He emulates the behaviour. He watches, he judges. When you steal, you aren't just breaking the law, you're giving him material for a scandal, and Sven loves a scandal, as long as he isn't the target. There is a community debate about Sven's utility versus his personality. Many players despise him because his quest involves delivering a fake letter that can be incredibly cruel to Faendal. If you help Sven, you're essentially helping a bully. When this bully turns on you for stealing a cheese wheel, the irony is palpable. Fans often point out that Sven is the quintessential fair-weather friend. He wants the glory of adventuring with the Dragonborn, the stories he can tell, the songs he can write, but he refuses to accept the grit and the grey morality that comes with the job. He wants the hero without the bloodshed. The combat scenario when Sven betrays you is pathetic but annoying. He will draw a dagger or a low-level sword. He might try to use a scroll if you gave him one, a terrible mistake. But primarily he creates noise. In a stealth mission, Sven is a liability. If you are trespassing, he will often initiate combat with the guards on the guard's side. Imagine sneaking through the Dragon's Reach dungeon to liberate a prisoner. Sven, seeing you pick a lock, might decide now is the time to uphold the law. He attacks you, alerting the guards, blowing your cover, and turning a stealth mission into a bloodbath. Furthermore, Sven's betrayal is uniquely tied to his mother. If you commit a crime in Riverwood and Sven attacks you, Hilda will often join in with her fists or a dagger. You're suddenly fighting a family unit. It reinforces the idea that Sven is not an independent adventurer. He's a tethered child. By taking him with you, you didn't gain a follower. You gained a chaperone who reports back to the village matriarch. His dialogue during betrayal is often whiny. "I'm not going to jail for you," or "You've crossed the line." It lacks the gravitas of Mjoll or the tragedy of Erandur. It's the cry of a man saving his own skin. He is the accomplice who flips on you in the interrogation room before the cops even offer him a coffee. As you strike him down, which takes very little effort, you feel a sense of irritation rather than loss. Sven was baggage. He was a bard who couldn't fight, a friend who wouldn't help, and a witness who wouldn't stay silent. His body lies on the floor of the inn, or the cobblestones of the street, a testament to the fact that not everyone in Skyrim is cut out for the life of a hero. Some are born to be bystanders, and if you try to drag a bystander into the underworld, they will scream until the law comes to save them. But if Sven is the coward who hides behind the law, our next subject is the warrior who respects the law because she knows the cost of breaking it. We travel to the stables of Whiterun and into the Bannered Mare, where a woman in steel plate armour sits alone, nursing a drink and a heavy conscience. She has killed before, by accident, and she will kill you on purpose if you force her hand. Inside the warm, firelit interior of the Bannered Mare in Whiterun, Amidst the smell of roasting venison and the chatter of merchants sits Uthgerd the Unbroken. She is a fixture of the tavern, clad in full steel plate, a greatsword resting within easy reach. To recruit her, you don't need to retrieve a sword or solve a nightmare, you just need to beat her in a fist fight. She respects strength, grit, and the ability to take a punch. But beneath that hardened exterior lies a woman tormented by a past mistake, a mistake that defines her absolute refusal to tolerate murder. Uthgerd will follow you into the darkest pits of necromancy, but if you murder an innocent in cold blood, she will crush you. Uthgerd represents the repentant warrior archetype. Her morality is standard for good followers, she won't commit crimes, but her trigger is specifically violent crime. Unlike Sven, who panics, or Faendal, who protects his social standing, Uthgerd protects the sanctity of life because she knows how easily it can be extinguished. She was rejected by the Companions, the glorious guild of warriors up the hill, not because she was weak, but because she was too strong and too reckless. The core in-game fact is her backstory, which she reveals if you speak to her. She killed a young companion during her trial. It was meant to be a test of skill, a spar, but her temper flared, her strength slipped the leash and the boy died. This accidental manslaughter haunts her. She was branded a danger, unstable, unbroken, in the sense that she couldn't be tamed for civilized combat. This is why she sits in the tavern, a warrior without a war. When she joins the Dragonborn, she sees a chance to use her strength for something other than accidental death. She wants to be a hero, so when the Dragonborn commits a murder, say killing Nazim for being annoying, or slaughtering a guard to escape a bounty, it triggers Uthgerd's deepest trauma. She sees you doing intentionally what she did accidentally. It is a mockery of her guilt. If she was exiled for an accident, how can she stand by while you commit murder with intent? Her betrayal is a form of self-regulation. She's punishing you, but she's also punishing the part of herself that she sees in you, the uncontrolled violence. Uthgerd's betrayal is terrifying because she is genuinely strong. She comes equipped with high-quality steel plate armor, which gives her significant damage reduction early in the game. If you gave her a two-handed weapon, she can decapitate you, if the perk triggers, in a single power attack. She fights with the fury of someone who has nothing left to lose. "I won't let you hurt anyone else," she might scream, a line that applies as much to her past victim as to your current one. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding her house. Uthgerd owns a home in Whiterun, and if you become her friend, you can sleep there. However, if you look around, it's sparse, almost lonely. There are no signs of family, no trophies of great hunts. It is the home of a woman living in penance. Some players have noted that she spends almost all her time in the Bannered Mare, avoiding the silence of her own house. This isolation amplifies her betrayal. You are her first real connection in years, the first person to beat her and earn her respect. When you turn criminal, you prove that her judgment is still flawed. You're just another mistake she made. The community debate around Uthgerd often centres on her exclusion from the Companions. Many fans argue that the Companions were hypocrites for rejecting her, considering they are secretly werewolves who often lose control. Some theories suggest Uthgerd might have been rejected because she refused the inner beast, or perhaps she was too volatile even for the circle. Regardless, her unbroken title is a badge of shame she wears with defiance. When she turns on you, she is proving that while she may be broken by guilt, she is not broken in spirit. She still has a code. Combat with Uthgerd is a brawl. She doesn't use magic, she doesn't hide. She closes the distance and starts swinging. In the confined space of a dungeon or a tavern, this is dangerous. She has high health and high stamina. If you're playing a mage or an archer, having Uthgerd turn on you in a narrow hallway is a death sentence. She becomes a wall of steel that you cannot pass, and unlike the guards, she doesn't accept to yield. She fights until one of you is dead. Consider the tragedy of the moment. You are fighting through a bandit fort. You accidentally hit a prisoner you were trying to free, killing them. Uthgerd, who was just fighting back to back with you, turns. The music doesn't change, but the red dot appears. She strikes you down. In her mind, she is stopping a madman. She's doing what the Companions should have done to her years ago. She's ending the threat before it kills again. Her betrayal serves as a grim reminder that strength without control is just brutality. Uthgerd respects strength. That's why she follows you, but she demands control. If you lack it, you are no better than the beast she fears she is. As her greatsword descends, it is the heavy hand of discipline correcting a fatal error. But not all followers are driven by personal trauma. Some are driven by the cold, hard ink of a contract and the regulations of the Empire. We leave the emotional turmoil of Whiterun and travel to the docks of Windhelm where the East Empire Company holds sway. Here, an Imperial woman proves that bureaucracy can be just as deadly as a barbarian's rage. The salt spray of the Sea of Ghosts hits us as we arrive on the icy docks of Windhelm. The city itself is a fortress of stone and snow, a monument to Nord independence, but down here by the water, the influence of the Empire still clings like barnacles to a hull. Standing amidst the crates and the shouting dockworkers is Adelaisa Vendicci, an Imperial administrator for the East Empire Company. She isn't a warrior born of the mead halls nor a mage of the college. She's a bureaucrat in armour, a woman who believes that the world is held together not by dragonfire, but by ledgers, manifests, and the strict adherence to protocol. Adelaisa is available as a follower after the quest, Rise in the East, where you help her and the company assault a pirate stronghold. She's grateful for your help in restoring order to the shipping lanes, but do not mistake her gratitude for friendship. Adelaisa is the embodiment of lawful neutral in its most rigid corporate form. Her morality is set to no crime, but her flavour of betrayal is distinct. It is the rejection of a liability. She doesn't hate you, she just can't have you ruining the audit. The core in-game fact about Adelaisa is her gear and her role. She wears Imperial armour, signifying her allegiance even in the heart of Stormcloak territory. She's technically a citizen-class NPC, but she carries herself with the authority of a commanding officer. When the Dragonborn commits a crime, theft, assault, trespassing, Adelaisa reacts as if you have violated a company policy. To her, chaos is bad for business. If you steal, you're disrupting the economy. If you murder, you're creating a staffing shortage or a diplomatic incident. Her betrayal is the ultimate firing squad. Adelaisa represents the company man or woman archetype. Her loyalty is to the structure, the hierarchy, the empire. You are an asset, a contractor brought in to solve a problem. The moment you become a problem by racking up a bounty or attacking a guard, you are written off. Her AI will turn hostile immediately upon witnessing a crime against the faction she respects, which includes the guards of any hold, as the East Empire Company relies on the protection of local law enforcement to operate. Combat with Adelaisa is frantic because she is often underestimated. She isn't a tank like Uthgerd or a sniper like Faendal. She fights with a sword and shield, a standard soldier's kit. However, her betrayal often happens in civilized areas, cities, docks, warehouses, where she can rally others to her cause. If you steal from the East Empire Company warehouse while she's following you, she won't just attack. She will alert the dockworkers, the guards, and anyone else on the payroll. You suddenly find yourself fighting a union dispute with lethal weapons. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding the East Empire Company's reach. In the lore, the EEC is almost a sovereign entity with its own mercenaries and rules. They have a history of ruthlessness in protecting their interests. Look at their actions in Morrowind. Adelaisa is a product of this culture. She is used to making hard decisions. In the quest, Rise in the East, she initially plans to bombard the pirate island with catapults regardless of the potential for collateral damage or the loss of goods. She prefers the clean sweep. When she turns on you, she's applying that same doctrine. You are the pirate now. You need to be bombarded. A fascinating fan theory suggests that Adelaisa might actually be a sleeper agent or a spy for the Penitus Oculatus, the Emperor's personal security service. Her presence in Windhelm, the seat of the Stormcloak Rebellion, is highly suspicious. She operates openly, yet the Stormcloaks tolerate her because the trade she brings is essential. If this theory holds, her intolerance for crime makes even more sense. A spy cannot afford to be associated with a common criminal. It blows their cover. If you get arrested while with her, you risk exposing her operation. Therefore, she must distance herself from you violently to maintain her cover as a respectable merchant. The dialogue during her betrayal is clipped and professional. "I can't believe I trusted you," or "You're a disgrace to the Empire." It's the language of a disappointed supervisor. She isn't heartbroken, she's annoyed that she has to file the paperwork for your death. She views your criminality as a breach of contract. You were hired to be a hero, to clear the shipping lanes. Heroes don't pick pockets. Heroes don't murder shopkeepers. You're failing to deliver the service you were retained for. Imagine the scenario. You're in Solitude, the heart of Imperial power in Skyrim. You're visiting the East Empire Company warehouse to grab some loot. You take a potion off a shelf. Adelaisa, who is following you, draws her Imperial sword. "Stop right there," she commands. It's not a request. She attacks. The guards, seeing an Imperial citizen attacking a thief, join in. You're cut down under the banners of the Empire you just helped save. Her betrayal serves as a reminder that in a world of magic and monsters, institutions still hold power. The East Empire Company is a leviathan that spans the continent. Adelaisa is its finger. When you break the law, you are poking the leviathan, and the leviathan bites back. As you deflect her blows, you realize that there is no pleading with a bureaucrat. There is no appeal process. The sentence is death, effective immediately. And as she stands over you, showing her sword, you can almost hear her mentally calculating the cost of cleaning up the mess you made. But while Adelaisa fights for the cold logic of the ledger, our next betrayal comes from a place of warmth, mead, and simple country honour. We leave the stone docks and travel to the volcanic tundra of Eastmarch, to the small mining settlement of Kynesgrove. Here, a man with a beard full of knots and a heart full of stories shows us that even the most easygoing drinking buddy has a line he will not cross. As we trudge through the sulphur-scented mists of Eastmarch, leaving the icy winds of Windhelm behind, the ground softens into the warm geothermal mud of the tundra. Here, amidst the venting steam and the looming shadow of the throat of the world, lies the sleepy settlement of Kynesgrove. It's barely a town, just an inn, a mine, and a few tents. But inside the Braidwood Inn sits a man who embodies the very soul of the Nord working class, Roggi Knot-Beard. He's the guy who buys you around, tells you a story about his beard and complains about the damp. He is the ultimate drinking buddy, but make no mistake. Underneath that ale-soaked geniality lies a spine of iron that will not bend for your criminal escapades. Roggi is a miner, a man of simple pleasures and hard labour. He isn't a trained killer like Janassa or a sworn protector like Lydia. He's a guy who digs rocks and loves his ancestors. To recruit him, you don't need to slay a giant or brawl him into submission. You simply need to listen to his woes about his lost family heirloom, the ancestral shield of Clan Rament, and go fetch it from a random dungeon. It's a classic fetch quest, but for Roggi it means the world. When you return that shield, you aren't just giving him an armor piece, you are restoring the dignity of his bloodline. In return, he pledges his service to you. "I'm with you," he says, with a smile that seems genuine enough to warm the coldest Skyrim night. However, Roggi's betrayal is perhaps the most jarring because of this nice guy persona. His morality rating is set to the highest standard. No crime. This seems counterintuitive for a rough-and-tumble miner who spends his nights in a tavern. We expect the working class of Skyrim to be a bit rougher around the edges, perhaps willing to look the other way if you snag a few coins from a rich thane. But Roggi is a man of simple honour. He believes in a code that predates the Empire and the Stormcloaks. He believes in doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Here is the core in-game fact that makes his betrayal both tragic and pathetic. Roggi Knot-Beard has one of the lowest level caps of any follower in the game. He caps at level 20. Unless you're using mods to uncap him, Roggi stops growing stronger while you ascend to godhood. He is statistically weak, proficient in light armour and one-handed weapons, but lacking the perks to make them truly effective. Yet, despite being mechanically outmatched by almost everything in the game, including the Dragonborn, he will not hesitate to attack you if you break the law. Imagine the scene. You're in the Braidwood Inn celebrating a successful dragon kill. You decide to have a little fun and swipe a bottle of Blackbriar mead from behind the counter. Or perhaps you get into a fistfight with a rude patron and accidentally draw steel. Roggi, your drinking buddy, your bro, instantly turns. The red dot appears. He draws his pickaxe or a basic iron sword. "You shouldn't have done that," he cries. It's not the roar of a warrior, it's the disappointed shout of a friend who expected better from you. Roggi represents the community defender. In a place as small as Kynesgrove, everyone knows everyone. Idra, the innkeeper, is likely his friend. The guards are his neighbours. When you commit a crime in Kynesgrove, you aren't just breaking a law, you're attacking his family. His loyalty to his community overrides his debt to you. You found his shield? Yes, but that shield represents the honour of his clan. If he allows you to commit crimes while he stands idly by, he is dishonouring that very shield all over again. He attacks you to keep the shield clean, metaphorically speaking. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding his family name, Knot-Beard. If you speak to him, he tells you that he earned the name because he ties a knot in his beard for every... Well, he actually forgets why he started doing it. But the name Raiment from his clan shield suggests a fallen nobility. The Raimonts were likely a respected family in the old holds who fell on hard times, perhaps losing their lands and ending up as miners. Roggi is the last vestige of this noble line. His insistence on high morality might be the only thing he has left of his heritage. He may be poor, he may be a miner, but he is a Raiment, and Raimonts do not consort with thieves. This leads to a community debate about Roggi's utility versus his personality. He is widely considered one of the worst followers in the game purely from a stats perspective. He is squishy, does low damage, and has no magic. Yet many players love him. Why? Because he's nice. He's positive. In a world of grimdark prophecy and civil war, Roggi is just happy to be there. This makes his betrayal sting more than Uthgerd's or Adelaisa's. When Uthgerd attacks you, it's a clash of warriors. When Roggi attacks you, it feels like kicking a puppy that is trying to bite you because you stole a bone. You feel bad for killing him. You feel like the villain. The mechanics of his betrayal are often messy. Because Kynesgrove is so small, a fight with Roggi usually draws in the entire town. Idra pulls a dagger. The other miners grab pickaxes. You suddenly find yourself slaughtering a hamlet of innocent workers because Roggi decided to be a hero. And because he's so weak, he dies fast. 1 or 2 swings and he's down. The silence that follows is heavy. You look at his body, perhaps looting the ancestral shield back, and you realise the futility of it. He died for a bottle of mead. He died because he couldn't let it slide. Furthermore, Roggi is a candidate for marriage. If you marry him, he moves into your home, opens a shop and gives you a lover's comfort bonus. But the morality script doesn't vanish with the wedding ring. If you commit a crime in your own home, say you kill a housecarl or attack a pet, Roggi, your husband, will turn on you. Domestic bliss is shattered by his unwavering adherence to the law. He will draw a blade on his spouse to defend the abstract concept of justice. It's a grim reminder that in Skyrim, till death do us part can be accelerated by a bounty. The simple honour of Roggi Knot-Beard is a fragile thing. It's a glass shield. It looks nice, it carries history, but it shatters under the pressure of the Dragonborn's chaotic life. He is a man built for a peaceful world, a world where debts are paid and laws are obeyed. By bringing him onto the road, you are dragging him into a world he isn't equipped for, physically or morally. As you leave Kynesgrove, leaving his body to be reclaimed by the steam and the mud, you might feel a twinge of regret. He was a good man, a simple man, and in the end, his simplicity was his undoing. He couldn't navigate the grey areas. He saw black and white, right and wrong, and he died on that hill, or rather, on that small, muddy slope of the tundra. But while Roggi's honour was tied to the community of the living, our next subject's loyalty is tied to the dust of the dead. We travel deeper into the mountains to a tomb where the restless spirits of the past hold sway. Here, a Nord waits outside his family crypt, terrified to enter alone, but even more terrified of the disrespect you might show to his ancestors. High in the crags of the rift, hidden from the main roads by twisting paths and prowling bears, stands Hilgrun's tomb. The air here is thin and quiet, save for the wind whistling through the ancient stonework. Outside the heavy iron doors waits Golldir, a Nord whose anxiety is palpable. He isn't seeking glory or treasure, he is seeking to stop his aunt, a necromancer named Valsveren, from defiling his ancestors. Golldir is a man bound by the sacred duty of blood. He represents the ancestral guardian archetype, and his betrayal is triggered not by the laws of Jarls, but by the laws of the crypt. Golldir's narrative begins with a plea. He cannot enter the tomb alone. He tried, and the horrors within drove him back. He needs the Dragonborn's strength to cleanse his family's resting place. As you fight through the Draugr, who are disturbing enough, his own great-aunts and uncles reanimated, Golldir apologises to them as he strikes them down. "Forgive me, uncle," he shouts. It is a touching display of reverence. He is killing them to save their dignity. This deep respect for the dead is the core in-game fact that defines him. Golldir is unique because his quest is entirely internal to his clan. Once the quest, ancestral worship, is complete and his aunt is defeated, he becomes a follower. However, Golldir's morality is a strict no crime. This might seem standard by now, but the context of his betrayal is unique. Golldir's trigger is often linked to the sanctity of spaces. While he will attack you for theft or murder in a city, his reaction to crimes within tombs or disrespectful acts feels more personal. If you are looting a burial urn in a Nordic ruin and he is with you, he generally tolerates the game mechanic of looting, but if you attack a non-hostile NPC, perhaps a fellow adventurer or a passive ghost, Golldir's wrath is ignited. He views the act of violence against the innocent as a desecration of life, mirroring the desecration his aunt visited upon the dead. But the most potent betrayal scenario involves the very tomb you cleared. If you return to Hilgrun's tomb later, or if you linger there and engage in criminal behaviour, like attacking him or stealing items that might be tagged as owned in certain modded or bugged states, Golldir reacts with the fury of a guardian whose trust has been violated. But more commonly, it is in the cities where his ancestral honour clashes with the player. Golldir is a Nord of the old ways. He respects the traditions. Theft, to him, is a sign of weakness, a lack of character that dishonours one's own ancestors. Consider the psychological angle. Golldir is a man who just had to kill his own family members to save their souls. He is traumatised. He is hypersensitive to moral corruption because he has seen what it looks like when it wears the face of a loved one, his aunt. When the Dragonborn, his saviour, commits a crime, it triggers a dissonance. You saved his ancestors, yet you act like a bandit. In his mind, you're sliding down the same slope as Val's Varen. You're using your power for selfish gain. You're becoming a monster, and Golldir has already proven he is willing to kill family to stop a monster. You're just a friend. You're much easier to kill. An obscure lore tidbit adds flavour to his combat style. Golldir is one of the few followers who comes equipped with heavy armour and a shield, but has a proficiency for one-handed weapons that makes him a solid defensive fighter. He is a tank in the truest sense. He holds the line. In the game files, he has a unique dialogue line where he expresses a desire to be buried in the tomb with his kin one day. This fatalism drives him. He isn't fighting for a long life. He is fighting for a good death and a clean conscience. If you force him to be an accomplice to a crime, you are denying him that clean conscience. You are threatening his afterlife. A fan theory posits that Golldir's high morality is a reaction to the specific shame of his clan. The Varen family produced a necromancer who defiled their own tomb. That is a stain on the name that will last for generations. Golldir is likely overcompensating. He needs to be the most honourable, the most law-abiding Nord in Skyrim to wash away the stain of his aunt's sins. He cannot afford to be seen with a criminal Dragonborn because his reputation is already hanging by a thread. He betrays you to protect the little shreds of honour his family has left. Combat with Golldir is a slog. He has high health and blocks frequently. He shouts taunts like, "Skyrim belongs to the Nords," or generic combat barks that take on a new meaning when directed at you. He fights defensively, turtling behind his shield, waiting for an opening. It's a stubborn, grinding fight, much like the man himself. He won't overpower you with flash, but he will wear you down. If you are a squishy mage, his shield bashes can stagger you, interrupting your spells and leaving you vulnerable to his axe. Imagine the betrayal happening in the Hall of the Dead in Whiterun. You are there to retrieve an amulet for a quest. You decide to pickpocket the priest of Arkay. Golldir, who views the Hall of the Dead as a sacred space akin to his own family tomb, snaps. The environment triggers his protective instincts. He draws his weapon in the House of the Dead to stop the living criminal. It is a poetic justice. He will not let another necromancer in training, you, disrespect the grave. As you deliver the final blow, Golldir usually groans and falls. I join my ancestors, he might murmur, or the standard "I'm done for." The tragedy is complete. You helped him save his tomb, only to send him to it early. He becomes just another body in the crypt, another tragedy in the long, sad history of Clan Varen. And you, the Dragonborn, are left with the realization that some people's loyalty is anchored in the past, in the stone and the bone, and you cannot drag them into your chaotic future without breaking them. But if Golldir's limits are defined by the dead, our next subject's limits are defined by the living, specifically the wild, vibrant life of the frontier. We travel to Darkwater Crossing, a mining camp nestled in the geothermal mists, where a mother who yearns for adventure proves that loving the thrill of the hunt doesn't mean condoning the hunt of the innocent. The mist clings to the water's surface at Darkwater Crossing, a place where the steam from the volcanic tundra meets the cold rush of the river. It is a place of breathtaking, raw beauty, hidden away in the southern folds of Eastmarch. Here, amidst the miners and the sound of pickaxes striking ebony ore, lives a woman who refuses to let the dust of the mine settle on her soul. Annekke Crag-Jumper. She's not your typical NPC, she's a mother, a wife, and a ranger who seems to have wandered out of a high fantasy novel only to get stuck in a domestic loop. But do not let her restless spirit fool you. Annekke might love the thrill of the wild, but she has a mother's intolerance for misbehaviour, and if you cross the line from adventurer to criminal, she will discipline you with the sharp end of an arrow. Annekke represents the restless matriarch archetype. She's one of the few older followers in the game who isn't an elder mage or a decrepit hermit. She has a family, her husband Verna Rock-Chucker, and her daughter, the famous Sylgia, who lives in Shaw's Stone. The core in-game fact that defines Annekke is her quest, Kill the Bandit Leader. She asks you to clear a bandit camp not just for safety, but to prove a point to her husband. She wants to show him that she can still handle herself, that she isn't just a miner's wife. When you complete this task, she agrees to follow you, eager to trade the pickaxe for a bow and the damp mine for the open sky. However, Annekke's desire for adventure is strictly coded within the bounds of heroism. Her morality is set to no crime. This creates a fascinating friction. She wants to live dangerously, to climb mountains and explore ruins, but she wants to do it as a good guy. She views adventuring as a noble pursuit, a way to experience the world's majesty. Crime, on the other hand, is a sordid, dirty business that belongs in the gutters of Riften, not the pristine wilderness she loves. If the Dragonborn decides to murder a traveller for their boots, or steal a horse to save time, Annekke's romantic view of the adventurer's life is shattered. You aren't a hero, you're just another bandit no better than the ones she sent you to kill. The betrayal is sharp and precise. Annekke is a ranger class, proficient in light armour and archery. When she turns on you, she behaves much like Faendal, but with better gear and a more aggressive AI. She is agile, she moves constantly, using the terrain to her advantage, fitting for someone named Crag-Jumper. She will retreat to high ground, peppering you with arrows while shouting, "I won't let you get away with this." It's the voice of a disappointed parent. You promised her a grand tour of Skyrim, a chance to relive her glory days, and instead, you dragged her into a crime spree. There is an obscure lore tidbit hidden in her dialogue that makes this betrayal even more poignant. Annekke frequently comments on the beauty of the world. "I love the air. Here," she'll say, or remark on the trees. She has a genuine connection to Kinnereth's creation. Furthermore, if you speak to her husband Verna, he complains that she spends too much time wandering the wilderness, implying she neglects her duties at the mine. This suggests that Annekke is running away from the mundane. She is escapist. When you commit a crime, you ruin her escape. You force the ugly reality of the world back into her face. You turn her fantasy vacation into a police report. A popular community debate surrounds Annekke's family dynamic. Fans often wonder why she lives in Darkwater Crossing, while her daughter Sylgia lives alone in Shaw's Stone, injured and working a mine. Some theorise there is a rift between mother and daughter, perhaps because Annekke is too flighty, too focused on her own crag-jumping to care for her injured child. Others argue she is simply respecting Sylgia's independence. Regardless, this family tension adds weight to her betrayal. Annekke is a woman trying to define herself outside of her family roles. When she joins you, she is trusting you with her identity. By making her an accomplice to crime, you are disrespecting that trust. You are proving her husband right, that she should have stayed home. The combat scenario with Annekke is uniquely skirmisher in style. She wears light armour, often hide or scaled, which means she isn't a tank. She can't take a hit from a warhammer. This makes her fight more desperate. She must keep away from you. If you are a heavy melee character, you feel like a lumbering bear trying to catch a nimble fox. She uses the environment, jumping over rocks, running behind trees. It's a frustrating game of tag where the tag is a steel arrow in the eye. And because she's often found in the wilderness, since that's where you take her, there are no guards to intervene. It's just you, the Crag-Jumper, and the silence of the woods. Imagine you are hunting deer in the plains of Whiterun. You see a hunter. You decide to kill him for his unique bow. Annekke, who was just admiring the sunset, draws her weapon. She doesn't hesitate. To her, the wilderness has rules. You don't kill without need, you don't prey on the weak, you've violated the Ranger's code. Her betrayal is an enforcement of natural law. It is also worth noting that Annekke has a very limited level cap, around level 30 without patches. As you outlevel her, her betrayal becomes more tragic than dangerous. She's fighting a demigod with a hunting bow. She knows she can't win, but she fights anyway. Why? Because Annekke Crag-Jumper has never backed down from a challenge. She didn't back down from the bandits, she didn't back down from the hard life of a miner, and she won't back down from a corrupt Dragonborn. As she falls, perhaps tumbling down the very crags she loved to jump, you're left with a heavy silence. You killed the cool mom. You killed the woman who just wanted to see the world one last, time before her knees gave out. You turned her midlife crisis into a death sentence. But while Annekke fought for the natural law of the wild, our next subject fights for the written law of the executioner's block. We leave the open plains and travel to the high stone walls of Solitude, where a man with a very large axe and a very grim profession waits to add your head to his collection. We trade the freedom of the crags for the oppressive looming arches of Solitude. This is the seat of imperial power in Skyrim, a city of laws, courts, and legions, and standing right inside the main gate, usually looming over a grindstone or patrolling the damp corridors of the Castle Dower dungeon, is a man who doesn't just respect the law. He is the final period at the end of its sentence. Ahtar. He is the public executioner, the headsman of Solitude, and a redguard of few words and heavy swings. Ahtar is a fascinating figure because his introduction is a public spectacle. The first time you enter Solitude, you watch him take the head of Roggi, the gate guard who let Ulfric Stormcloak escape. It is a brutal, professional display. Unlike the heated passion of Mjoll or the nervous energy of Sven, Ahtar is ice-cold. He represents the state-sanctioned violence archetype. To recruit him, you must speak to him in the dungeon or the inn, where he complains about a bandit leader who has escaped justice. Because he can't leave his post, the jail is understaffed, he claims, he outsources the execution to you. Once you kill the target, Ahtar agrees to follow you, seemingly treating you as a freelance deputy. However, do not mistake his willingness to travel for camaraderie. Ahtar's morality is strict no crime. This makes perfect sense for his profession. He is a jailer. He spends his days staring at the scum of Skyrim from behind iron bars. To Ahtar, a criminal is not a rebel or a misunderstood rogue. A criminal is inventory. When the Dragonborn commits a crime in his presence, you instantly shift from colleague to client. The core in-game fact that defines his threat level is his weapon, the headsman's axe. If you recruit him, you can take this weapon from his inventory, or he wields it. It is the only weapon of its kind in the game, a massive crescent-bladed two-handed axe with an incredibly long reach. In the hands of the player, it's a novelty. In the hands of Ahtar, who is coded to use it, it is terrifying. When he turns on you, he doesn't just attack, he tries to execute you. The reach of that axe means he can hit you before you can get close enough to strike him with a dagger or sword. He controls the space with the authority of the block. The betrayal dynamic here is chillingly impersonal. Ahtar is not a man of high ideals like Erandur. He doesn't scream about the divines or the honour of his clan. He is a professional. If you steal an apple or punch a guard, Ahtar's AI simply registers a breach of the peace. He draws his axe with the same weary efficiency he used on Roggi. His dialogue lines are gruff. You're not going to get away with this, or simply, time to die. It feels like he's clocking in for a shift. He isn't angry at you, he's just doing the job you forced him to do. An obscure lore tidbit lies in his race and position. Ahtar is a redguard serving as the executioner for a Nord city under imperial rule. This is an anomaly. Usually Nords prefer their own to handle matters of honour and law. Ahtar's presence suggests he is a specialist, a mercenary of death who was hired because he has no local ties. He has no cousin in the hold who might ask for a favour. He has no clan loyalty to get in the way of the blade. He is the perfect impartial tool of the state. This isolation makes his betrayal absolute. He has no emotional tether to you. You are just another head. The community debate around Ahtar often centres on his cool factor versus his lacklustre stats. He caps at level 30 and has no magic, making him technically mid-tier. However, fans love the aesthetic of the headsman follower. There is a dark irony in running around Skyrim with the guy who kills people for a living, but the debate shifts when players realise how quickly he turns. Some argue that Ahtar should have a flexible morality. After all, he kills for money. But the counter-argument is that Ahtar is lawful. He kills when the Jarl says kill. He does not kill when a random adventurer says kill, unless it's a bandit. By acting as a vigilante criminal, you are insulting his profession. You're making a mockery of the process. Combat with Ahtar is heavy. He wears his unique executioner's outfit by default, which is light armour or clothing, depending on the patch, but he will equip any heavy armour you give him. If you have decked him out in full ebony or Daedric plate, his betrayal creates a juggernaut. He moves slowly, but every hit staggers. The sound of that massive axe cleaving the air is distinct. It's a whoosh, followed by a wet crunch. And because he is often recruited late in a playthrough, when you visit Solitude, you likely have him well geared. You built your own executioner. Imagine the scene. You are in the Blue Palace, perhaps delivering a quest item. You see a silver goblet and give in to your kleptomania. You pocket it. Ahtar standing beside you in full plate size. A shame, he might as well be thinking. He brings the axe down. The guards don't stop him. He is the law. You're fighting the system itself, personified in a man who knows exactly where the vertebrae sever easiest. As you fight him, you realise that Ahtar represents the cold, hard wall of civilization. He is the line between the city and the wild. You cross that line, and unlike Mjoll, who judges your soul, or Faendal, who judges your character, Ahtar simply judges your neck. When he falls, the heavy thud of his axe hitting the floor signals the end of the shift. You have killed the headsman, but in doing so, you have only proven that you belong on the block. You are the outlaw he was hired to kill. But while Ahtar's betrayal is the result of a long career in violence, our next subject's betrayal is the result of a dream shattered. We leave the stone courts of Solitude and travel to the rolling farmlands of Rorikstead, where a boy named Erik is about to learn that meeting your hero is the most dangerous thing you can do. We leave the grim stone of Solitude and descend into the golden plains of Whiterun Hold. Here, the wind ripples through the wheat fields, and the only sound is the lowing of cattle and the distant roar of a giant. We arrive in Rorikstead, a village that feels stuck in time, a place where nothing ever happens until you show up. And waiting for you, usually hoeing a patch of dirt or leaning against the inn wall, is a young Nord named Erik. He's not a warrior yet. He's a farm boy with a head full of dreams and a heart full of stories he hasn't lived. Erik the Slayer. Erik is special. He's named after Erik West, a real-life fan of the Elder Scrolls who visited Bethesda Studios shortly before passing away from cancer. The developers immortalised him as Erik the Slayer, a character brimming with optimism and the pure joy of adventure. This meta-context makes his betrayal one of the most heartbreaking in the game. Erik represents the disillusioned innocence archetype. He doesn't just turn on you because you broke a law. He turns on you because you broke his heart. When you first meet him, he is just Erik. He begs you to convince his father, Moralki the innkeeper, to buy him armour and let him become an adventurer. You are his catalyst. You are the hero he wants to be. Once you persuade his father, usually with gold or intimidation, Erik dons his new iron armour and adopts the title the Slayer. He is eager, chatty, and comments on everything with wide-eyed wonder. "I've never seen anything like this," he'll say about a Dwemer ruin. He is the ultimate fanboy. However, Erik's morality is set to crime, personal, or no crime, depending on the patch, but functionally he behaves as a highly moral character. He has a conscience. He believes adventurers are heroes who save princesses and slay dragons. He does not believe adventurers are people who pickpocket beggars or murder innocent travellers. When the Dragonborn commits a crime, it shatters Erik's worldview. You, his mentor, his idol, the person who gave him his freedom, are a crook. The betrayal is visceral. Erik is a barbarian class, proficient in light armour and two-handed weapons. He hits hard. But it's his dialogue that hurts. Erik's voice actor delivers lines with a youthful energy that turns frantic when he attacks. He isn't a seasoned killer like Ahtar, he's a panicked kid trying to stop a villain. He fights you with the desperation of someone realising they have made a terrible mistake with their life choices. The core in-game fact here is his transition from Erik to Erik the Slayer. This renaming signifies his rebirth. He believes he has entered a noble fraternity. When you steal or kill, you are telling him that the fraternity is a lie, that the Slayer is just a title for a murderer, His attack is an attempt to reclaim the honour of the title you helped him get. He wants to be a slayer of evil, and you have just identified yourself as the evil. An obscure lore. Tidbit involves his father, Mjoll. Mjoll is heavily implied to be a former soldier or adventurer himself, based on his dialogue and the fact that he owns decent armour to give his son. Mjoll was reluctant to let Erik go because he knew the dangers of the world. He knew that the hero's life is often bloody and short. By turning Erik into a criminal's accomplice, you are proving Mjoll right. You are the bad influence the father warned his son about. If you kill Erik in self-defense, you haven't just killed a follower, you have destroyed a father's legacy and a young man's potential. The community debate around Erik is almost universally positive. Everyone loves him. He is the little brother of Skyrim. This makes his betrayal a community trauma. Players often reload saves if they accidentally trigger Erik. It feels wrong to fight him. It feels like kicking a puppy. But the game's systems don't care about sentiment. If you steal a horse in front of him, Erik will attack. The juxtaposition of his cheerful banter, "This is great, I'm finally an adventurer," and his sudden violence is jarring. Combat with Erik is surprisingly dangerous because of his aggression. He has high stamina and power attacks frequently. He rushes you. In his mind, he is the hero of the story now, and you are the boss fight. He's living out the legend, just not the way he expected. He is fighting the Dark Lord, you, to save the realm. Imagine the scene. You're in a dungeon looting a chest. You accidentally take an item marked steal instead of take. Erik, who was just marvelling at the architecture, draws his greatsword. "I won't let you do that," he shouts. The betrayal is instant. There is no hesitation. His morality is simple, unclouded by the cynicism of older warriors. Stealing is wrong. You stole. Therefore, you must be stopped. As you strike him down, the light leaves his eyes. The boy who just wanted to see the world dies in a dark corner of it, killed by the person who showed it to him. It is a tragedy of mentorship gone wrong. You were supposed to be Obi-Wan. Instead, you were Palpatine. The silence after killing Erik is the loudest in the game. You look at his iron armour, the armour you helped him get, and you realise that some dreams should stay on the farm. By bringing him with you, you didn't give him a life. You gave him a death. But while Erik's betrayal is about the loss of innocence, our next subject's betrayal is about the preservation of a life that was almost lost. We leave the sunny fields of Rorikstead and travel back to the dangerous reaches of the Rift, to a mine where an Argonian survivor knows exactly what it means to be trapped in the dark. We return to the misty autumnal forests of the Rift, but this time we bypass the city of Riften and head towards the rushing waters of the Darkwater River. Hidden behind a waterfall, in a damp, spider-infested cave known as Darkwater Pass, lies the Golden Rock Mine. It is here that we find Derkeethus, an Argonian miner who has gone missing. When you find him, he is cornered, trapped by Falmer and Chorus, terrified but alive. Derkeethus is a survivor. He represents the value of life archetype. His betrayal isn't born of a code or a god, but of a deep instinctual understanding that life is fragile and should not be wasted by a reckless criminal. Derkeethus is a unique follower for several reasons. First, he is the only Argonian follower available in the base game, without mods or DLC. This makes him a rare commodity for players who want a lizardfolk companion. Second, he is essential, sort of. Due to a persistent bug in the game's code that was never officially patched, Derkeethus is often flagged as essential even after his quest is complete. This means he cannot die. He will take a knee, recover, and get back up. This makes him an incredible tank. But it also makes his betrayal a nightmare. You cannot kill him to stop him. You can only run. The core in-game fact is his rescue. You save him from being Falmer dinner. He is immensely grateful. "I knew you'd come for me," he says. He returns to Darkwater Crossing where he works the mine. If you recruit him, he brings his mining skills and decent archery or light armor stats to your service. But Derkeethus is a simple soul. He loves the water, he will often swim while you walk, and he loves being alive. His morality is no crime. This seems standard, but for an Argonian who just escaped a Falmer torture pit, it has a different flavour. The Falmer represent the ultimate corruption of life, twisted, blind, hateful. When the Dragonborn commits murder or violent crime, Derkeethus sees the same darkness. He sees the predator. He spent days in the dark listening to the Faermina scream. He won't travel with someone who acts like them. His betrayal is frantic. Derkeethus is a ranger class. He will use a bow or dual-wield one-handed weapons. When he turns on you, his dialogue is filled with hisses and shouts. "You cannot do this," he cries. Because he is often essential, this fight is a loop of violence. You knock him down, he gasps, he gets up, he attacks again. It is a relentless, unwinnable conflict against your own immorality. You are forced to flee the scene, chased by the very lizard you saved, who is now the unkillable avatar of your guilt. An obscure lore tidbit involves the Argonian concept of the Hist. While Derkeethus is a miner in Skyrim and seemingly disconnected from the great histories of Black Marsh, Argonians are naturally communal and connected to the cycle of life and death. The Hist reveres survival and the protection of the tribe. By acting as a criminal, destroyer, you're acting against the natural order. You're a rogue element. Derkeethus, even far from home, may feel that subtle pull to purge the danger. A community debate surrounds his bugged status. Many players use Derkeethus because he is unkillable. They use him as a meat shield for dragon priests and legendary dragons, but this exploitation adds a layer of cruelty to his betrayal. You're using a glitch to enslave him to your will, forcing him to soak up damage. When he finally snaps because you stole a sweet roll, it feels like the game code itself rebelling. The tool is fighting back. The meat shield has grown a conscience. The combat scenario is chaotic. Derkeethus is fast. He moves like water, fittingly. If you're near a river, he might even dive in and shoot you from the water, utilising his water-breathing ability. It's a tactical nightmare. And the fact that you can't put him down for good means you have to use calm spells or simply sprint until you load a new cell. He is the Terminator of moral guardians. Imagine the scene. You are in a town, perhaps Windhelm. You get into a brawl that turns lethal. Derkeethus, your unkillable shadow, draws his bow. The guards are attacking you. Derkeethus is attacking you. You strike him down, thinking it's over. You turn to fight the guards. Suddenly an arrow hits you in the back. Derkeethus is up. He's back. He will always be back. His betrayal serves as a reminder that you cannot outrun your actions, and you cannot kill the truth. Derkeethus is the lingering consequence of your bad behaviour. He is the friend who won't go away, the conscience that won't die. As you run from him, leaving him gasping but alive in the distance, you realise that saving a life creates a responsibility. You're responsible to the life you saved. Derkeethus owes you his life, yes, but he doesn't owe you his soul, and he certainly won't let you turn his second chance at life into a criminal record. But while Derkeethus fights because life is precious, our next group of betrayers fights because the undead are an abomination, and if you break the law, you are just another monster to be hunted. We travel to the hidden canyon of the Dayspring, where the Dawnguard trains to fight the darkness, and where a young recruit named Agmaer is watching you closely. We leave the misty forests of the Rift and head southeast, towards the border of Morrowind. Here, a narrow cleft in the mountains leads to the Dayspring Canyon, a hidden valley where the sun seems to shine a little brighter, a natural fortress against the creeping shadows of the night. This is the home of the Dawnguard, the ancient order of vampire hunters reborn. And walking the path with us, nervous, clutching his ancestral axe, is Agmaer. He is the rookie, the new guy, a farm boy like Erik but with a much darker purpose. He isn't here to find adventure. He is here because he is terrified of what lurks in the dark, and if you prove to be a creature of darkness, not by blood but by deed, Agmaer will turn that axe on you without hesitation. Agmaer represents the zealous recruit archetype. When you first meet him near the canyon entrance, he is unsure of himself. "Do you think they'll take me?" he asks. He looks to you for validation. You walk into Fort Dawnguard together. You are his classmate in the school of monster hunting. But unlike the Dragonborn, who might view the Dawnguard as just another faction to join for loot and crossbows, Agmaer buys into the ideology completely. He's there to protect humanity from predators. The core in-game fact is his faction allegiance. Agmaer belongs to the Dawnguard faction. This faction has a specific, hard-coded hatred for vampires, obviously. But Agmaer's morality of no crime extends this hatred to criminals. To the Dawnguard, a criminal is a parasite on society, much like a vampire. A thief bleeds the economy, a murderer bleeds the populace. If the Dragonborn commits a crime, Agmaer doesn't just see a lawbreaker, he sees a monster. He sees someone who preys on the weak. This triggers his hunter programming. The betrayal is ironic because Agmaer starts as a weakling. He has poor stats and poor gear, but as the Dawnguard questline progresses, he trains. He gets better armour, better weapons, often a crossbow. If you take him as a follower after he is trained, you're taking a disciplined soldier. But his fear never fully leaves him. It transforms into aggression. When he attacks you for stealing or killing, it is a preemptive strike. He is killing the monster before it can bite. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding his weapon. Agmaer brings his grandfather's axe to the fort, but Isran, the leader, dismisses it. However, Agmaer keeps it. It symbolises his connection to his family and his desire to defend them. When he turns on you, he is defending that family back home. He is ensuring that the corruption you represent doesn't spread to his farm. He is fighting for the little people against the tyranny of the strong criminal. A fan theory suggests that Agmaer's rapid radicalisation is due to Isran's intense indoctrination. Isran is a paranoid, hardline leader who trusts no one. Agmaer soaks this up. He learns that vigilance must be constant. Trust is a weakness. So when you, his friend, commit a crime, Agmaer doesn't give you the benefit of the doubt. He assumes you have been compromised or that you were always bad. He channels Isran's paranoia. "I knew I couldn't trust you," he might shout, echoing his mentor. The combat scenario is distinct because of the crossbow. The Dawnguard are the only faction that uses crossbows extensively. These weapons hit hard and have a staggering effect. If Agmaer betrays you, you're often hit by a bolt before you even know he's hostile. The sound of the latch clicking and the bolt flying is the sound of judgment. He will keep his distance, reloading with mechanical precision, treating you like a vampire lord even if you're just a petty thief. Imagine the scene. You're in Fort Dawnguard. You see a nice potion on a table, you take it. Agmaer, standing next to you, doesn't say, "Put that back." He raises his crossbow. The entire fort turns hostile. You're suddenly in a kill box surrounded by elite vampire hunters. Agmaer has flagged you as a target. You're no longer the Dragonborn, you are the prey. His betrayal is a lesson in the dangers of ideology. Agmaer wanted to be a hero so badly that he adopted a black and white view of the world. There is no room for grey in the Dawnguard. You are either a hunter or the hunted. By breaking the law, you chose your side. As you deflect his bolts and close the distance, you might feel pity. He is just a scared kid with a big gun. But a scared kid with a big gun is dangerous. You have to put him down. And as he falls, you realise that the Dawnguard's light burns away everything, including friendship. But while Agmaer fights for the light of the sun, our next subject fights for the light of knowledge and the reputation of a hated institution. We travel north to the frozen coast of Winterhold, where a Nord mage is trying to prove that magic isn't evil, and he will kill you to prove it. The wind howls through the shattered arches of Winterhold, a city that is literally falling into the sea. Perched precariously on a crumbling cliff is the College of Winterhold, a fortress of magic that is viewed with deep suspicion by the local Nords. Inside the Hall of Attainment, surrounded by scrolls and soul gems, sits Onmund. He is a rarity, a Nord mage. In a culture that distrusts magic and blames it for the Great Collapse, Onmund has chosen a path of resistance. He's trying to prove that a Nord can wield magic with honour. This burden of representation makes him incredibly sensitive to how magic users are perceived. He represents the ambassador of the arts archetype, and his betrayal is fueled by a desperate need to protect the reputation of his craft. Onmund's narrative is one of estrangement. When you speak to him, he reveals that his family disapproved of his decision to join the college. They see magic as a tool of elves and weaklings. Onmund is here to prove them wrong. He wants to show that magic can be a force for good, a tool for the Nords. The core in-game fact that defines his loyalty is his quest to retrieve a family amulet he sold to Enthyr. He regrets selling it because it was his last link to the family that rejected him. When you get it back for him, you are validating his identity. You are telling him he can be a mage and a Nord. However, Onmund's morality is set to no crime. This is critical because of the stereotype he is fighting against. The common people of Skyrim believe mages are dangerous, lawless, power-hungry sorcerers who will steal your soul or burn your house down. If the Dragonborn, a fellow mage of the college, starts committing crimes, you are confirming every negative stereotype Onmund is fighting against. You are proving his family right. You are the evil wizard, the Nord's fear. Onmund's betrayal is electric. Literally, he favours shock magic. When he turns on you, the air fills with the smell of ozone. "I won't let you give us a bad name," implies the subtext of his aggression. He isn't just stopping a crime, he's performing damage control for the entire college. If he lets you steal or murder, the Jarl might finally have the excuse he needs to march on the college and throw everyone into the sea of ghosts. Onmund is policing his own to ensure survival. There is an obscure lore tidbit regarding the school of magic he favours. Onmund uses lightning, shock spells. In lore, shock is often associated with the destruction of magicka itself, draining the target's mana. It is a mage killer element. This suggests Onmund has trained specifically to deal with rogue mages. He is prepared for the eventuality that magic goes wrong. When you go wrong, he is ready. He is the internal affairs division of the college. A community debate often centres on Onmund's personality being bland, compared to J'zargo or Brelina. But his blandness is actually caution. He is walking on eggshells. He cannot afford to be eccentric like a Khajiit or arrogant like a Telvanni. He has to be the good Nord. When he attacks you, that mask of calm slips. He reveals the anger of a man who has sacrificed everything for a dream, only to have his partner ruin it. The combat scenario is dazzling and dangerous. Shock magic hits instantly. There is no travel time like with fireballs or ice spikes. You cannot dodge it. If Onmund turns on you, you are taking damage immediately. And because he is a follower, he might have staves or scrolls you gave him. A betrayal by a mage follower is often the most chaotic because they can summon Atronachs. You might find yourself fighting Onmund and a storm Atronach in the middle of a crowded market. Imagine the scene. You are in the Arcaneum. You decide to steal a rare book from Urag Groshub's desk. Onmund, who knows how precarious the college's standing is, snaps. He blasts you with lightning. The librarian sends an Atronach after you. You are fighting a magical civil war in the library. Onmund is shouting not in anger but in panic. He is trying to excise the cancer before it kills the host. As you strike him down, perhaps with your own magic or a blade, the tragedy is palpable. Onmund wanted to be a bridge between two worlds, the traditional Nords and the arcane scholars. By forcing him to fight you, you burned that bridge. You left him broken on the stone floor, a failure in the eyes of his family and a casualty of his own integrity. But our final betrayal is the most personal of all. It comes not from a recruit or a colleague, but from the person sworn to carry your burdens. We travel back to where it all began, to the halls of Whiterun, where a housecarl waits to teach you the final bitter lesson of loyalty. We end our journey where, for many of us, it truly began, in the smoky, firelit expanse of Dragon's Reach. The Jarl sits on his throne, the map of the Civil War is spread on the table, and standing at attention near the door is the woman who has become the face of servitude in Skyrim. Lydia. She is your housecarl. She is sworn to carry your burdens. She is the meme, the legend, the first follower most Dragonborn ever know. But beneath the stoic expression and the heavy steel armour lies a conflict as old as the Nords themselves. The conflict between the oath to a person and the oath to the land. Lydia represents the feudal obligation archetype, and her betrayal is the ultimate tragedy of conflicting duties. Lydia is given to you by Jarl Belgruff after you defeat the first dragon Mimulnir. This is a crucial detail. She's not a mercenary you hired, she's an appointment. She represents the Jarl's trust in you. She's a living badge of your office as Thane. Her core in-game fact is her title, housecarl. In Nord culture, a housecarl is a bodyguard, yes, but also an enforcer of the Thane's will within the bounds of the Jarl's law. She's part of the political structure of Whiterun. However, Lydia's morality is set to no crime, or crime personal in some versions, but functionally often stricter depending on faction flags. While she will tolerate a surprising amount of chaos compared to Mjoll, she has a breaking point, and that breaking point is treason against the hold she serves. If the Dragonborn attacks a Whiterun guard, or murders a citizen of Whiterun, Lydia is placed in an impossible position. She's sworn to protect you, but she's also sworn to the Jarl and the hold. The game's AI resolves this conflict by prioritising the crime faction. The law overrides the Thane. Her betrayal is the most painful because of the history you share. Lydia is the one who blocked the doorway when you were trying to escape a trap. She is the one who charged a giant so you could run away. She is the one who sighed every time you gave her dragon bones but carried them anyway. When she turns on you, it feels like your own right arm is attacking you. It feels like a glitch in the universe. "I am your sword and your shield," she said. But now she is the sword at your throat. an obscure lore. Tidbit sheds light on the seriousness of the housecarl title. Historically, housecarls were the elite guard of kings and jarls. They were expected to die for their masters, but they were also expected to uphold the honour of the house. If a thane became a criminal, a stain on the court, the housecarl had a duty to excise that rot. Lydia's betrayal can be seen as her fulfilling the highest form of her oath, protecting the dignity of the thane's title, even if it means killing the person currently holding it. She is saving the office of the Dragonborn from the corruption of the player. The community debate around Lydia is legendary. Is she sarcastic? Is she loyal? Is she just bad AI? But when it comes to betrayal, the debate shifts to ownership. Players feel they own Lydia. She is the free follower. When she attacks, it shatters the power fantasy. It reminds the player that in Skyrim you are never truly the master. The world has rules, and even your sworn protector is subject to them. The combat scenario is iconic. Lydia is a quintessential warrior. She uses heavy armour and a sword and shield. She is tanky. She shouts, "Skyrim belongs to the Nords," or "I'll kill you if I have to." Her voice, usually so monotone and weary, becomes fierce. She fights with the discipline of a soldier. She blocks, she bashes, she strikes. Fighting Lydia is like fighting a mirror image of a standard warrior build. It's a grind. And because she is often decked out in the best gear you found early on, she is a formidable wall of steel. Imagine the scene. You are in Bree's home, your own house. You get into a disagreement with a guest, or perhaps you misfire a spell. Lydia, who lives there, who watches you sleep, draws her sword. In the very home she is sworn to protect, she decides that you are the intruder. You are the threat. It is a domestic dispute turned lethal. As you strike the final blow, Lydia falls to one knee. "I have failed," she often says. The weight of that line is immense. She failed to protect you, yes, but she also failed to navigate the impossible maze of loyalty you put her in. You forced her to choose between her jarl and her thane, between the law and her oath. And in Skyrim, the law of the blade is the only one that matters. As her body lies on the floor of Dragon's Reach or the cobblestones of Whiterun, you are left alone. The burden she carried, the dragon bones, the iron ingots, the spare cheese wheels are scattered around her. But the heaviest burden was the expectation of your heroism. And that is one weight she can no longer carry. And so, we leave the cold stone floors of Dragon's Reach, and we leave the echoes of betrayal behind us. The swords are sheathed, the shouts have faded, and the red dots on the compass have finally disappeared. We step away from the complexities of code and morality, away from the heartbreak of broken oaths and shattered trust. Take a deep breath now. Let the tension of the fight drain out of your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. You're no longer the Dragonborn navigating a minefield of loyalty. You're simply here, safe, in the quiet dark of your own room. The winds of the Pale cannot reach you here. The judgments of the divines hold no sway over your rest. Imagine the map of Skyrim folding up, the mountains flattening into ink, the rivers drying into parchment. The world we explored tonight, with all its sharp edges and sudden turns, is drifting away like wood smoke rising into a night sky. The characters we met, Mjoll, Erandur, poor Erik and loyal Lydia, are returning to their scripts, sleeping in their digital beds, waiting for another sunrise that doesn't concern us right now. You don't need to watch your back anymore. There is no one following you, no one judging you, no one waiting to see if you make a mistake. There is only the stillness of this moment, the heavy warmth of your blankets, the steady rhythm of your breathing, and the comfortable silence that settles in when the adventure is done. Let your mind drift over the landscapes we visited, the golden forests, the snowy peaks, the warm taverns, but let them be soft now, blurry and distant, like a painting viewed through half-closed eyes. The fire has burned down to embers, the music has faded to a gentle hum. It is time to rest your burden, whatever it may be. The quest log is empty, the world is at peace, and so are you. Sweet dreams.